Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is my look at Clockwork Empires Beta 53, which is the last release to the stable branch, distributed through Steam and actually just through Steam. So, I say this every month. A bunch of new stuff has been added. There have been significant changes to the flow of the game. Some changes bigger than others, so we'll take a look at those. However, interesting new wrinkle has developed. A Reddit poster by the name of Blue Rider Zero has discovered or uncovered what may be Clockwork Empire's participation in an ARG, an alternate reality game. So I am going to post details about that at the end of this video after I've gone over some of the new stuff. If you just want to skip ahead to that part of it, I'm going to put up a clickable link somewhere on the video, say here. No, on the second thought, let's put it over here. Yeah, so you can click on that and just jump right to the bit at the end. In the meantime, we're going to cover what's new, how the game plays, that sort of thing, all the stuff I usually do in episode 1. So, some pretty significant changes, some of which you can even see just by looking at the screen here. Oh, and by the way, I'm experimenting with recording this in 1080p. That should be fun. If you're like me and you watch YouTube videos in a window the size of a postcard, you probably won't notice anything different. But for those of you who, like to watch a maximum size, you can enjoy these close-ups of these textures. Look at these cabbages. All right, so let's take a look at this colony. This is a colony after approximately 2 hours of play in the new revision. It's been pretty stable so far, no game-breaking bugs. The biggest change, I think, or one of the biggest changes, is definitely changes to the immigration system. So prior to this revision, immigrants would just arrive like clockwork on a regular basis every couple of days. You get an overseer or a lower class worker. That's not the case anymore. Now immigrants, first of all, there's a population cap, and you will get immigrants by increasing that cap. And you do that by building residences for them to live in. So, if I mouse over to this up here, that's right, I've got maximum population of 13, of which I have 13 people. I'm full, right? And that's broken down into 6 lower class workers and 7 middle class overseers. And handily enough, that pop-up window also gives me the amount of time I'll be able to feed them given my current food stores. So I'm in a pretty good place. I've got a few days of food stockpiled. Yeah, so how do we increase the population cap? Well, I'll direct your attention to, say this one. This house here is the lower class house. Well, that's been renamed. It used to be, what was it called? I don't remember its name now. It was still, all the buildings are still there. Lower class house, what used to be called the middle class house, is now the overseer house, and then there's an aristocrat's house, which is the high quality dwelling. That actually changes nothing. That's just the name of the building. However, let's take a look at the info pane here. So the lower class house adds +2 labor population capacity. So again, if we look up at the top, my lower class population cap is 6. If I build another house, it will become 8, and then I'll have 6 of 8 possible laborers. This can be affected by other things. So in addition to the house itself providing +2 to that capacity, the laborer cap, if I put 3 cots in there, its contribution to the cap is +1. If I put in 2 windows, its contribution to the cap is a further +1. If I raise its quality to great or better, which I believe on the quality meter is +4, then I get another +1. So as we can see, I've done 2 of these things, and thus the cap bonus provided by this building is 2 on top of the base 2, so 4. So right now, this building is allowing me has raised my lower class population cap by a total of 4. Pretty simple, right? I have a middle class house being built right now, and by the same token, each middle class house you build adds +1 to your overseer population capacity. And it's got similar, although slightly different requirements. If you build windows and beds and furniture in there, the overseer cap bonus provided by that building increases by increments of 1. So you don't just passively get workers or new arrivals to your colony anymore. They depend on your ability to house them. Oh, speak of the devil. Right. So let's take a look at the middle class house, right? Just as a base building, regardless of its actual size, which is something I'll come back to, the building itself adds +1. If I put in 2 windows and 2 beds, both of which must be appropriate to the class of the house. So in this case, practical beds, not just the cheap cots. Practical beds and middle class windows. So those are more expensive than the cheapy wooden windows because they need glass. So you need your industry up and running. Fortunately, as you'll observe over here, I have a fully functional ceramics workshop that will actually be renamed to the stoneworking workshop in a future patch at some point. Anyway, that's where you get glass. I have the ability to build glass now. So the overseer house, anyway, +1 overseer. If I put in 2 windows and 2 beds, it'll be +2 overseers. If I put in the practical table and chair set, which has to be built here at the carpentry, if I put in 2 of those, that will be a further +1 to the overseer capacity. Here's practical table and chair set. It's kind of cheap. Again, it requires glass. And there we go. If I raise it to wonderful quality, which I believe on the quality scale is actually +6, then I'll get a further +1. So, what's the most efficient way to get more colonists in a hurry? Well, I can build a whole bunch of cheap, undecorated buildings because there's a flat minimum additional amount of colonists. Or I can upgrade my existing buildings, which means I'll spend more on the buildings, but I'll build fewer buildings. So it kind of depends what strategy you would like to pursue. Probably a mixture. So those are the immigration changes. As a result, my general feeling is that immigration proceeds more slowly than it did before. Rather than just getting them on a regular basis all the time, now you need to build and house them. And because they only come when you build additional capacity, the way I play, I've been receiving immigrants more slowly. That's just me, though. All right, another change. A small change. The landing site, regardless of biome, when the initial site where your colonists appear is guaranteed to be flat. So if I move around the mouse a little bit, you can see this roughly circular area here where it's flat, and there were no trees or rocks or anything when I got here. That's now guaranteed for every landing site, which is nice. And it really, if you like the challenge of flattening all your own land and, breaking the land or whatever, you don't have to build there. You can put your colony somewhere else. But it was the variability of terrain was affecting the consistency of the starting experience. Like if you started in the swamp, the land is riddled with like little pools of water that, you can't build on those, right? In similar fashion, if you built in the tundra or very hilly terrain, you'd have to do a lot of flattening before you can build buildings. So if you still want to do that as part of your colony, feel free, just build somewhere else. But for everybody else, your starting location will be flat. That's a nice quality of life thing. A more significant change, one which affects many different things, is that maps are now 50% smaller than they used to be. So I can click around here on the mini map. I guess it's kind of hard to see, but basically maps, you can probably tell by the scale of the white dots relative to the size of the mini map. The map is now it's 50% thinner and shorter than it used to be. There are a couple of different reasons for this. I mean, practically speaking, players almost never built at the edges of the maps or even traveled there. They would occasionally travel there. But having a map that size introduced a lot of overhead into basically the computations the program had to do, and random locations where things would happen, and you have to simulate the movement of all these animals and monsters wandering around in the dark where you can't even see them, and they're so far away you'll probably never encounter them. Making the map smaller just made sense. Because the map is smaller and there's less to simulate, that's the autosave, by the way, this has made possible many optimizations to the client. For instance, save file sizes are smaller, the time spent saving and loading save files is faster, and because there's less to simulate, and this is a really big deal for many people, there's now a increased game speed button. So up here on the top right, see this little stopwatch with the 2x on it, and just click it arbitrarily and the whole simulation runs at double speed. Just turn it off and on as I like. This is particularly useful early in the game when everybody has tasks and the game does not require input from you and you just want everyone to get things done as soon as possible. Also, during those long nights when nothing is happening, you can make time pass faster at night. Oop, and there's been an airship crash near the colony. So we can see here in the mini-map, I suppose this is the little lighted patch was where the airship crashed. This is another one of the random events, and the event itself introduces an event arc. So I'll be faced with a number of choices, and the game will progress based on what I choose. In this case, who I send to investigate, whether or not I have a naturalist or a diplomat, that sort of thing. But for now, just a notification. Also, the forest is burning. Fire can spread between flammable objects like trees, and things they burn are, you can see it leaves behind burnt timber, some of which can be recovered as logs. I wonder if it's going to reach my town, actually. Buildings can also catch fire, as can people, which is, a minor concern of mine. Ravenous herd incoming. Oh, okay. So, what this text box is telling me, basically, I need to send someone to investigate that burning crash everyone heard at night. I can send an NCO, just some random dude, or not bother. I'm going to send the NCO. Gertie Chuzzlewit, you have a new job. Right, so I've sent the investigator. Right, so putting that aside for the moment, so maps are smaller, optimizations, program runs more efficiently, double speed button. Another change is that civilians are now able to fight in a limited capacity. They're not as good as soldiers, and often they will fight with their fists or gardening implements, which makes them not great. Or, in this case, we can see they have spontaneously pulled out rifles, I guess. So the colony is... I mean, when you're in a life and death situation, you have bandits running around town, it makes sense that your colonists would fight back tooth and nail, right? They have nowhere else to go. So they no longer run around like chickens with their heads cut off. They will fight back. They're not very good fighters, but, they'll fight back. My NCO has reached the crash site. Gertie Chuzzlewit is taking a break inside a boulder. Having investigated the site, Gertie found wreckage, evidence of small arms fire, singed papers, and what it's telling me here is if I had a diplomat, so if I built a foreign office, I would have more options. Unfortunately, I do not, and I just have to click this, hopefully this button works out button. And so that's the result. I believe we've Beatles on the menu tonight. So we can see this is the crash site here. Where are you guys all going? There's some goods here. Combat supplies. I saw some other airship wreckage up here as well. Currently hidden in the fog of war. So we can actually salvage the airship debris. And this is the aftermath of the dirigible crash event. Because I did not have a diplomat, my reputation with the Empire and the Novorus have both declined. I'd be able to take advantage of that if I had built, if I had the foresight to build a diplomatic office and had some diplomats. Also, well, I see our cabbage harvest is suffering, but on the plus side, we now have a ton of beetle meat to tide us over. Alright, so, probably one of, well, okay, so here's another change. In prior revisions, it used to be possible to select wide swaths of things by using the bounding box selection. And that's how I would select trees to cut down. That doesn't work anymore. That's been changed. You can still pick things off the map depending on context, but the tree chopping functionality has now been relegated to these series of buttons along the bottom middle. For instance, this is the chop tree stamp. So rather than drawing out an arbitrarily sized box, there's now a fixed size stamp to designate an area in which I need to chop down trees. Let's say here. Right, that creates a chop trees job, as we can see here in the job list. Currently assigned to Valentine Tar. And if I mouse over the icon it creates, then I can see exactly the trees that are designated. Same goes for mine surface nodes. Let's pick these rocks. And also the forage command. Clear terrain, same deal. And also the explore command. So, same functionality, but different way to do it. And why was this done? Well, when I asked the devs, they said one thing they wanted to avoid was having new players come into the game, think, oh, this is just like StarCraft. I will just highlight this entire giant field of Vespine geysers, and in my MCVs will figure it out. Right? That's not the way it works in Clockwork Empires. If you did that, if you selected a giant forest and then just said, okay, colonists do your thing, I mean, they would be chopping trees forever, but also they would be basically that locks them out of doing anything for a really long time. And it harms the game experience, and it's kind of not intuitive. So, according to the devs, that's why the system was changed. Not a big deal. If you want to harvest a larger area of forest or whatever, you just stamp multiple times. So, those are the big, obvious changes to the front. The front end. The game is reasonably stable now. I mean, it's in a good place. The developers have been focused on adding more events. So cults are back in the game. I believe they actually have been returned to the game in the previous revision. Also, Obeliskians. They have been. So there are a wider variety of the mysterious black creatures from time and space. I won't be able to show them to you in this video. The Quaggaroth now appears in game. So I'm not quite sure what the sequence of events is to awaken Quaggaroth. But there's a wider variety of Obeliskians. So the floaty ones that look like diamonds. There are more of those. There are also, in addition to the existing other floaty ones that look like cubes with dangly tentacles, and the ones about the height of buildings, which are the size of obelisks. And I'll let you see what I'll let you find what Quaggaroth looks like on your own. I've got a new overseer because the game recognized that I had increased my overseer population cap by 1, and so when the opportunity came, it gave me a new overseer. In this case, Lucinda Wild. Right. So, more stuff, changes, optimizations. Yeah, that's where it's at for now. I'm now going to spend a couple of minutes talking about the ARG. So, for those of you not in the know, ARG is an acronym that stands for Alternate Reality Game, which is a popular thing some video games do nowadays. In that, clues are hidden, and they often refer back to some sort of hidden message or a mini game or an additional little something that enterprising video gamers can dig up for themselves. In this case, this appears to be some kind of hidden message of unknown importance that's been distributed across a number of small indie games, one of which now appears to be Clockwork Empires. So I'm going to post up a series of links on the screen. Quite recently, the ARG in question is one that has been named the iSigil ARG by the enterprising detectives at Game Detectives, which is a subreddit, so ARG Game Detectives. You can look it up there on Reddit. They've also set up their own wiki, so there are a lot of details for with all information thus uncovered. The long and the short of it is that within a number of games that apparently have no obvious connections, the sigil, which it looks a little bit like a hand and a little bit like an eye, appears. In games in which this sigil appears, somewhere in the game files, there also appears what seems to be a circular map or a circular circuit diagram, possibly a labyrinth of some description. Or it's a puzzle piece, but other users have assembled them into what seems to be sort of a series of concentric rings. And here we have some suggested configurations for all those sections. Now here's a table of the dates and the games in which the sigil and the puzzle piece appears. Also video demonstrating how that was uncovered in a wide variety of methods. Some were simply hidden in the game files. Some actually required users to go out and find a real-world location, and others required things like a hex editor. So, Clockwork Empires has most recently been suspected of being involved, and this is because of the poster, a promotional image for the game released last year, September 16th, 2015. And if you look at the back of this obelescent block, you'll see the familiar eye sigil. Now, there are files in the game. So in the textures folders of all the textures used in objects in Clockwork Empires, there is some unused space. So there is a textures folder which contains all the artwork that is applied to every in-game model. In 3 of these images in particular, half of the image is just unused space, which is when you're creating textures for a game, you're always trying to minimize the amount of data that needs to be loaded into memory, and you also want to reduce the footprint of the game. So often you don't have a lot of unused space. It would appear in these 3 examples there is, for whatever reason, they left some unused space in which they let some of Gaslamp Games' designers put their little doodles and monster concepts. And there's an interesting note in one of them that seems to hint that there are A, more things hidden in the other files, but B, they are not in this location. And by this location, I mean this directory. So the actual directory in which this file appears, I'll just put the path up on the screen, but it's the building props file. I've had a quick look at the other textures in-game, and there's nothing that obviously seems like a circular circuit pattern. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the puzzle piece appears elsewhere and I've just missed it, or have to do something else to find it. That's where we are with the Clockwork Empires contribution to the ARG. Interesting stuff. If you'd like to keep up with this stuff, again, I'd advise you to check out the wiki page, visit the Game Detective subreddit, and yeah, you can post your findings and speculations there. So, enjoy. A little detective work for you. That said, that will be my look, the extent of my look at Beta 53. I'll probably play a couple of episodes into a playthrough, just so people can see what the pace of the game is, particularly given the changes in pacing and also the double speed button. So stay tuned here for more episodes. Otherwise, my name is Alfred. The game is Clockwork Empires. It's in early access, available on Steam, Humble Store, and also the Gaslamp Games website. Thanks very much for watching. I will catch you next episode.